On the same day, Jesus went out of the house and sat by the sea. Great multitudes were gathered together to him, so that he got into a boat and sat. And the whole multitude stood on the shore. Then he spoke many things to them in parables, saying, Behold, the sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seed fell by the wayside, and the birds came and devoured them. Some fell on stony places, where they did not have much earth, and they immediately sprang up, because they had no depth of earth. But when the sun was up, they were scorched, and because they had no root, they withered away. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up and choked them. But others fell on good ground, and yielded a crop, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. He who has ears to hear, let him hear.
So that is the parable, and then that very next verse is, it looks like his disciples were a little bit confused. I know that for us, okay, we know what that means, heard it 100 times, but for them, like, what in the world does he mean? And he even challenged them, why you keep talking in parables? And of course, there's a reason why Jesus talks in parables, and the reason is mentioned here in verse 11. Let's please read 10 and 11, please. Another volunteer, 10 and 11. Jeff?
And the disciples came and said to him, why do you speak to them in parables? And he answered and said to them, because it has been given to you to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven, but to them it has not been given.
So, this is a very intriguing thought here. The fact that Jesus spoke in parable, and that means some will understand it, some will not. And to some is given so they can understand it, and some not. So that's a very deep study that we're not going to delve into that right now, why Jesus spoke in parable, as it references here with verse 11. Jesus says that it's given for some to understand, but not for others. It doesn't mean here that really God is somehow biased and only wants few to understand. It's just that God wants one that understands to really want to understand, right? As opposed to, if they don't want to understand, they're not going to seek to understand, they're not going to understand. But the apostles wanted to understand. Therefore, a little bit later, they pretty much asked Jesus, can you please tell us what in the world did you mean by that parable? So let's please read verses 18 through 23. Another volunteer, 18 to 23. Go ahead. That's fine. Aaron, you had your hand up first.
Therefore, hear the parable of the sower. When anyone hears the word of the kingdom and does not understand it, then the wicked one comes and snatches away what was sown in his heart. This is he who receives seed by the wayside. But he who receives the seed on stony places, this is he who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. And he has no root in himself, but endures only for a while. For when tribulation or persecution arises, because of the word, immediately he stumbles. Now he who receives seed among the thorns is he who hears the word. And the cares of this world and the deceitfulness of riches choke the word, and it becomes unfruitful. But he who receives seed on the good ground is he who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and produces, some 100-fold, some 60, some 30.
So I just want to make sure everybody clearly understand what this parable is about. How many types of soils are there? 3. The first one is which one? The wayside. Imagine seeds going on the wayside, on the road, right? Where the road is hard, people travel on it. It's just going to sit there, right? Nothing's going to happen to it. And that is compared with the person that their heart is just hard, right? And they're just not going to accept the word. And this is plenty of circumstances in the world today. Would you speak the gospel to them, and then the word's going to have no effect on them? The second is which is the soil? The second one, stony. So what happens with the stony?
They immediately accept it with joy.
Accept it with joy.
It doesn't become fruitful and it falls
Yes.
quickly with the ways of the world.
Yes.
Deception or
Worries, deception. Yes, doesn't go. And then the third one. I'm sorry. There's 4. The third one. The third one is among the thorns, right?
thorns. Maybe I think I described the thorns.
That's okay.
I get them a little backwards.
That's okay. So around the thorn, what are the thorns here?
That's the one with the what I said, the cares of the world and deceptions.
So the thorns is he who hears the cares of the world. So then what was the rocks?
Grows fast,
No roots. Yes, no roots.
He stumbled immediately.
Right. So the thorns is it goes in, but then there's the cares of the world, and they're not gonna. What's gonna happen with them? Chokes the word out, right? And that's when they become a Christian, but then they allow the cares of the world to just overwhelm.
I think that kind of relates to what we spoke about. I think it was Wednesday night about feeling the void being filled with the Spirit,
Right.
versus not, and then
Right.
that's when you see people, several years or so.
Allow the cares, yes, to take over.
They fall
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yes.
kind of think of that.
Yes, absolutely. And it just has to do with the type of soil. And the last type of soil is which one? Good soil. So soil here we understand is our hearts. And people have these different kinds of hearts. So my question to you is which soil is, which soil is your heart made of? Let's read me one more time. The first soil is which kind? Wayside. The second type of soil is? Like that? 3? And then 4, good ground. So Jesus here in this parable talks about all people. Your heart, even as you're standing here, it's one of these ones right here. Your heart is either hard as a pavement on the sidewalk, stony heart, just a lot of stones there, and not really the Word of God is not going to catch on very well. A lot of thorns, which is the cares of the world that you allow, and or you can have a good heart, a good ground, and then when it gets right here, it will get roots and you will give fruit, right? And I like the last verse here because it says, "He indeed hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit." That is the key. You bear fruit, right? I mean, imagine if you plant a lemon tree, right, or any kind of fruit tree, an apple tree. I mean, which ground provides the best opportunity for that tree to give fruit when it comes to maturity? The fertile ground. I mean, you try to plant a seed inside a road where everybody, like a country road, with dirt that is very compacted. Good luck having a tree come up there, or stones or thorns. But if it goes in the good ground, then it provides results. And here it says that it will produce some 100-fold, some 60, some 30. So you'll produce various amount of fruit. And really for all of us, if we are a child of God, we need to ask ourselves, boy, in which category my heart falls into? And what do I need to do? So I'm in this group right here. With having a good heart, allow the Word of God to really come deep into my heart, and not just that you're going to have it be deep in your heart, but it needs to give fruit. We spoke last week, I believe, a little bit about fruit and the importance of us to bear fruit. We're not just to grow and just not have fruit, right? Here you go, lots of leaves but no fruit. Very good. Okay, so I want to go down next. I'm not gonna really cover all of these parables because we're a little bit behind. But let's please go to bottom of the page 1147. This is the parable of great treasure. Let's please read somebody verse 44. just verse 44. Who wants to read verse 44? Okay.
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and hid. And for joy over it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys that field.
Okay, so the kingdom of heaven is like a field that you find a big treasure. Think about it. Here in the Coachella Valley, right? You somehow know that's a property, house maybe in the backyard or some piece of land has like a gold mine, right? Like hundreds of pounds of gold buried like 2 feet underneath the right? Hundreds of pounds of gold. That's probably millions of dollars. But millions of dollars doesn't even compare to the kingdom of heaven. Imagine it could be, the kingdom of heaven, you cannot just apply a price to it. But if there's something of such great value, and in this case, through the comparison, it may cost millions of dollars to even buy the land. But imagine it costs 500 million. Imagine you can have such treasure that is valued so much more than the value of the land. What would you do? Tracy, you are a real estate person.
You buy it.
You buy
You
it?
sell everything so you can
You
make
sell
sure it
everything.
happens. You secure that land.
You secure that land no matter what. Yes, so you sell everything you've got and you buy that land. Right? That's really how the kingdom of heaven is. And then also the next parable is the parable of the pearl of great price. You have a pearl of great price. So verse 45, let's please somebody read this. 45. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant seeking beautiful pearls, who when he had found one pearl of great price, went and sold all that he had and bought it.
What kind of great pearl would that be? Can you imagine? Sell everything you've got just to buy one little pearl. Maybe it's something that's really out of this world. But yes, the kingdom of God can be like that one pearl that is so precious to really worth you selling everything you've got just to buy this pearl. Okay, think about it. That's really what the kingdom of heaven is compared to. So then we're going to go to verse 47. This is the parable of the dragnet. It's not a very common parable that many people know. The parable of the dragnet. A volunteer, please read verse 47 to 52. Tracy?
Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a dragnet that was cast into the sea and gathered some of every kind, which, when it was full, they drew to shore, and they sat down and gathered the goods into vessels, but threw the bad away. So it will be at the end of the age. The angels will come forth, separate the wicked from among the just, and cast them into the furnace of fire. There will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Jesus said to them, "Have you understood all these things?" They said to him, "Yes, Lord." Then he said to them, "Therefore every scribe instructing concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who brings out of his treasures things new and old."
So a dragnet, you understand what a dragnet is, right? Anybody here fishermen? A fishing net. Throw a big net, right? And then you catch all kinds of fish, good, bad. I mean, some fish are not good to eat, right? We understand that. Right?
What's interesting is, like in the canals in England, and they have these big magnets tossing out.
Right.
They find all kinds of weird, cool artifacts and things.
Yeah.
And, it's like a dragnet. So it's junk.
Right.
All this pretty cool stuff.
Right, some is junk. So really what's going to happen is that the second part of this parable is that at the end of the age, the angels will come forth and will separate the wicked from the just. What does that mean? A big wide net is cast. Whoever's harvesting, in this case God, right, is going to harvest a lot of results. But there's going to be good people, bad people in that dragnet, right? And then it says here in verse 49 is that the angels will come forth and separate the wicked from the just and cast them into the furnace of fire. And there will be gnashing, wailing and gnashing of teeth. So at the end of the age, the angels looks like this, they're going to be involved, and they are going to separate the evil people from the good people. And then there will be consequences for both. Questions about this? This is just one of the places in scriptures where we understand the reality of heaven and the reality of hell, and just the fact that if a person is wicked, and as is mentioned here in verse 49, there will be consequences. Right?
How do you think verse 52 fits into this as far as what Jesus says?
So it kind of changes the subjects a little bit. And
Does he change the subject? Because therefore means because of this, therefore
Yeah.
this is going to take place. And it's just
Right.
kind of wondered what exactly he might be
Right.
referencing.
Right. I mean, definitely they're connected, therefore they're connected. Then he said to them, therefore, every scribe instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who brings out his treasure things new and old. Well, this is talking about a scribe, every scribe instructed. Therefore, every scribe instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder. Maybe because they're going to bring everything under their roof, new and old, and I guess they do that, and then they hold to whatever is good. It's definitely a lot of depth to this, but I don't want us to get. Obviously, we can talk about this for a whole lot longer time, but just keep that in mind. What I mentioned, that at the end of the ages, the angels will come forth, separate the wicked from the just. And I just want to say that I wish that I will be among the just, and I wish that you will be among the just as well. Because I certainly don't want to go with those that will be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Let's turn the page now, and we're going to talk about the wind and the wave obey Jesus on page 1151. Let's please read first from verses 35 through 38. 35 to 38, and then we're going to have somebody else read 39 to the end of the chapter. Go ahead, 35 through 38. Who wants to read this? Joy, please.
On the same day when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us cross over to the other side." Now when they had left the multitude, they took him along in the boat as he was, and other little boats were also with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves beat it into the boat, so that it was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on a pillow. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?"
And then somebody else, please read. So imagine, big storm, right? Huge storm. And Jesus was just sleeping in the boat, in the stern, like nothing was happening. And the disciples come to him and wake him up. "Teacher, we're going to die. What are you doing sleeping? Get up." They wake him up. He was sleeping. And they're all worried that they're going to die. And then Jesus gets up. It's like, "Oh, you guys are waking me up." Verse 39 through 41. Somebody read this. Let's see what Jesus says. Go ahead, Tracy.
Then he arose and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. But he said to them, "Why are you so fearful? How is it that you have no faith?" And they feared exceedingly and said to one another, "Who can this be, that even the wind and the sea obey him?"
So Jesus wakes up. Oh, wow, you guys are just, can't get a sleep with you guys. Can't close an eye. Rebukes the waves. A great calm happens on the wave. And then, of course, they're like amazed. I don't know, Jesus went back to sleep, but it's rebuking them. "Why are you so fearful? You have no faith." Like what? You're going to die? Really? They already saw themselves, okay, we're going to die. And this is a great lesson for us, because oftentimes in our life, we feel like there are waves around us and things that they could destabilize us. And it's an encouragement for us to have faith and to not fear. Right, Rhett?
You know what is amazing to me about this is you're talking about professional fishermen, professional boaters,
Yes.
and they have the Lord Jesus with them, and they still fear for their lives.
Yeah.
It must have been, pretty rough.
Yes, I'm sure that was not their first.
I don't really understand.
Yeah.
Jesus sleeping, I understand. Jesus knows what's going on. He doesn't affect him. But is this not like a test of their faith? Not really, temptation.
Right.
It's like, okay, how are you going to react to this? I've been in a boat, number of boats, and when it starts filling up with water, your first inclination is, guess what? We're going to sink. And when it starts to sink, there's no stopping it.
Yeah.
They just had a fishing boat out of San Diego hit something out there, and 4 boats came to rescue all the people because the boat sank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like, and I understand Jesus, saying, but when they came to him and both said, "Lord, save us, we're perishing," it's like, I see real fear in their
Yeah, of course.
in their request, and yet Jesus rebukes them.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
It's important for us, as I mentioned, trying to draw lessons for us from every parable here, because every one of these parables is so relevant to us, to know that when winds and waves around us seem to overtake us and it feels like it's overwhelming, to know that Jesus is there with us, right? It's not like just going to forsake us and we're going to be on our own, and have faith that he will see us through. Tracy?
It makes me think of the verse, and I don't remember where the scripture is, but I've just read it recently, where God said, or the Lord Jesus says something to the effect of, what is the worst thing that they can do is kill you. They can take your life, but your soul goes to heaven. So what have you lost? You really can't.
Right.
I can't remember where that scripture
Well, where it says, to me to live is Christ and to die is gain.
Well, it's
Yes,
along
yeah.
that same principle.
Yeah, it's true. Obviously, they were interested in dying here, and Jesus didn't think, okay, you're going to die. I mean, obviously, that was not even part of the question, right?
Right.
But again, it is important for us, for you and for me, because whether you're younger or whether you're older, as long as you're going to live on this earth, you will have challenges and you will have difficulties. With faith, you can navigate through without being so fearful, knowing that Jesus is going to be there through that storm with you, and you're not going to be alone. And to just keep and have faith. Okay, let me see here. We're gonna, anyone tame them? Yeah. Let's please read, the next section here in chapter 5. This is when Jesus casts out demons. So let's please read from verses 1 through 10. 1 through 10. Volunteer 1 through 10. Jeff.
Then they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes.
Yeah.
And when he had come out of the boat, immediately...
So, 1 second. So they're just on the water, on the sea, on the little sea. Big event just happened. And they come to the shore, right? And as soon as they come to the shore, this is what happens. Right? The next thing that happens. Go ahead, sir.
And then he had come out of the boat. Immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no one could bind him, nor not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken in pieces. Neither could anyone tame him, and always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him, and he cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me." For he said to him, "Come out of this man, unclean spirit." And he asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Also he begged him earnestly that he would not send them out of the country.
So imagine Jesus just come to the shore and found this man butt naked, out of his mind, right? So among the tombs, constantly hurting himself, and obviously demon possessed, as it's indicated here. And Jesus asked the unclean spirit to come out of him, and asked the unclean spirit, "What is your name?" And the unclean spirit says, "It's not just one, it's many of us, legion." A legion is a lot of demons, right? Legion is many. And apparently Jesus was able to communicate with the legion of demons inside of this man. And the legion of demons is begging Jesus, don't just get us out, right? I mean, they're just fine where they were. And what did Jesus do? Let's see, what did Jesus do? Chapter, same right there. Let's read through verse 17, 11 through 17. Aaron?
Now a large herd of swine was feeding there near Damascus. So all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us to the swine, that we may enter them." And at once Jesus gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine. There were about 2,000. And the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea and drowned in the sea. So those who fed the swine fled, and they told it in the city and in the country. And they went out to see what it was that
Are you catching what's going on here? So the demons say, boy, just if we have to get out of this man, at least throw us in those swines. 2,000 swines. That's a lot of swines. Have you ever seen 2,000 swines in one place? When I was in Romania with Mark, we saw lots of sheep, and they feel like so many sheep. But this is 2,000 is a lot of animals in one place. So it says, okay, go into those swines. And what the swines do? Swine not being in the right mind, they end up jumping into the sea and dying. And no, please.
Is there any, maybe it's just me, but I don't know how many demons there were. Like you said, there were many.
Yeah.
But can the demons, since there's 2,000 separate swines,
Yes.
or individuals,
Yes.
can one demon go into more than one swine, or is there like 2,000?
Of demons.
We are legions. It can be one or two. It could be. So if I imagine. So if it's a demon, it's obviously not an easy topic to think about. How do demons dwell, and can a demon possess more than one host at one time? You see, we're going very much into detail. Marks?
A legion can go from like a couple hundred to like 5,000. A legion in like military terms is like, it's in the thousands. So it's possible that there were literally thousands of demons in this guy, which is scary.
Scary, very scary. Yes, thank you, son.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I wondered that.
Yeah, exactly. But again, it's still a lot of unknowns there. The question is, can one demon be in more than one pig at a time? I guess that's a study for a different time. Or a human at a time. Okay, very good. So let's just keep on going. Turn the page. And we're not going to read through everything, because this parable, just like many other parables, it is mentioned in many Gospels, and we're only going to talk about it from one time. We're not going to talk about it, the various differences that are happening with each individual account from every Gospel. So now we're going back, we go into the bottom of page 1153, and in Mark chapter 5, we see here about the son of Jairus. We talked yesterday about how many people did Jesus raise from the dead? How many? 3. Jesus raised 3 people from the dead. The first one is the daughter, the widow's son in the city of Nain. The second is right here in Mark chapter 5, is a little daughter of a synagogue leader called Jairus. She was dead, and Jesus goes and tell her, "Get up, little girl," and the little girl gets up. And then the last one, of course, is Lazarus. Everybody knows about Lazarus. But right here, hidden, or right here in chapter 5, in between this story with Jesus raising this little girl from the dead, I think she's like 12 years old, it says here. Jesus performs another miracle, and this miracle is a little bit unique. Let's see what happens. Starting in verse 25, let's please read 25 to 34. 25 to 34, who wants to read this? Joy?
Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years and had suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had and was no better, but rather it grew worse.
Okay, pause 1 second. So you have a woman with a flow of blood. She had some kind of hemorrhage. And this is no joke, especially back in the days. You don't have Eisenhower Medical Center. You don't have high-end treatment facilities. Doctors back then could only heal so many things. And obviously, even right now, some types of hemorrhages are very difficult to diagnose, even by doctors that are very, go to school for many years with all the technology. So you have a woman that she had a type of bleeding disorder. This is what it is, a bleeding disorder. And this bleeding disorder could be devastating. You know, when you don't have blood, you feel very weak, you don't have a lot of energy. It's a very, very debilitating disease. I'm sorry, go ahead, continue.
When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him in the crowd and touched his garment. For she said, "If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well."
Okay, 1 second. So what does she do? Jesus passes by. She says, "Boy, if I can only touch his garment, maybe my my clotting disorder or bleeding disorder, whatever is going to go away. She had faith, right? Otherwise, she wouldn't have done it. And then, go ahead, 29.
Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?"
Okay, pause right there. So what happens, the woman, as soon as she touched the garment of her clothes as he was walking by, of his clothes as he was walking by, the woman immediately felt that she was healed. And Jesus even felt something happened because I felt power that came out from me. And he says, "Who touched my clothes?" And of course, the apostle is going to be like, "What are you talking about? Everybody's touching you. You're just moving through big crowds." Go ahead, please.
But his disciples said to him, "You see the multitude thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?'" And he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction."
Isn't that beautiful? Of course, the woman gets terrified. "Oh no, I was caught. I was doing something that I shouldn't have done." And Jesus, of course, has mercy and says, "All is good. All is good. Daughter, your faith has made you well." So the woman had the faith to really come to Jesus, to touch him. And then she was rewarded by the fact that she was healed from her affliction. Just like that. Just like that. So you see the power of Jesus when we come to his presence. And even today is true. When we come to his presence, when we have a relationship with him, how we can be healed, how we can be, how our problems can dissolve, how we will be protected just because we are living in the presence of Jesus. Very good. So let us continue. So let's turn the page. There is here another miracle that Jesus performs in John chapter 5. Let's go to page 1156. And I'm going to have a volunteer. And we're going to read from verse 1 through verse 15. Who wants to read this? Let's see what happens here. 1 through 15. Come on, somebody. Kay, go ahead. I might stop you as you go, but go ahead.
Okay. After this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. For an angel went down at a certain time into the pool and stirred up the water. Then whoever stepped in first after the stirring of the water was made well of whatever disease he had. Now a certain man was there who had an infirmity 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and knew that he already had been in that condition a long time, he said to him, "Do you want to be made well?"
Okay, thank you. So what happened so far here, there's a pool of water, right? Obviously, there was something miraculous. There was an angel that would stir the water, and then whoever would go into the water first, after the stirring of the water, they would be made well. And there's so many people sick and lame that were trying to be made well by that miraculous pool of water. And Jesus comes there and talks with this man that couldn't walk, right? Or what was the problem with him? Infirmity. He had an infirmity for 38 years. And Jesus asked him, "Do you want to be made well?" Just like that. It's like, and then what is his response? Verse 7. Keep on reading.
The sick man answered him, "Sir, I have no man to put me into the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another steps down before me." Jesus said to him, "Rise, take up your bed and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked.
Thank you. You can stop right there. So Jesus says, "Oh, well, that's a bummer that nobody can put you in, but don't worry, I can fix that. I can heal you right now. You don't need no water to jump in after it gets stirred." So Jesus just heals him right out. Take up your bed and walk. And that created quite a stirring. Keep on reading.
And that day was the Sabbath. The Jews therefore said to him, Who was cured? Who was cured? It is the Sabbath. It is not lawful for you to carry your bed."
Thank you. So what happens now is that all the Jews that were against Jesus, they found issue with Jesus. And what was their issue?
That he worked on the Sabbath.
You can't kill somebody on a Sabbath day. You just can't do that. You have to do it on a other day, other than Sabbath. They totally dismissed the fact that this man was healed, right? That is a miracle took place. And then they just said, well, yeah, but you did it on a Sabbath. And that's a problem. Keep reading.
He answered them, "He who had made me well said to me, take up your bed and walk." Then they asked him, "Who is the man who said to you, take up your bed and walk?" But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, and multitude being in that place. Afterward Jesus found him in the temple, and said to him, "See, you have been made well, sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." The man departed and told the Jews that it was Jesus who had made him well.
Yeah, and it gets, I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but it comes even a little bit later to where they're asking, how come you healing this person on a Sabbath day? And what did Jesus tell them?
Is that the response where he said, if your donkey goes into the ditch, do you...
Yeah, when the ox goes into the ditch. So what happens if something happens on your donkey or your cat, okay, some of you have animals, falls somewhere into a ditch somewhere and is meowing at you or barking, are you going to let it die because it's Sabbath? Mark, what would you do?
I would. But he also talked about how he's like, so I'm not allowed to do good on the Sabbath?
Yes.
He talked about how like, oh, if your brother needs help, you're not going to help him because it's Sabbath?
Yeah.
So it's not just animals, it's like,
It's-
well, I helped him. Was I not allowed to help people? Are you criticizing me for helping someone?
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's no answer to that. How are you going to answer that, right? Just along with any other arguments that they had against him, I mean, Jesus, the way he responded, made their arguments totally void because they were not really looking to really having the law of God somehow to uphold, but just to really prove their point and try to get Jesus to look like he was the bad person, right? Very good. Let's keep on going. Turn the page. Top of page 1159. Somebody can read, please. Actually, at the bottom here, confess Christ before men. Let me see. Let's please read from verse 27 through 31. 27 to 31. Who wants to read this? Go ahead, Tracy.
Whatever I tell you in the dark, speak in the light. And what you hear in the ear, preach on the housetop. And do not fear those who kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. But rather fear him who is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. Are not 2 sparrows sold for a copper coin? And not one of them falls to the ground apart from your Father's will. But the very hairs of your head are all numbered. Do not fear, therefore. You are of more value than many sparrows.
Very good. So Jesus here tells them, speak, don't be afraid to speak the word, and then it culminates with verse 32 to 33.
This was just to back up when I was trying to find that scripture earlier.
Yes.
This is one of those that speaks to that.
Yeah.
It's like it says, do not fear those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul.
Exactly.
So we should speak.
Absolutely. Yes, you shouldn't be afraid. And it takes it a step further. In verse 32 and 33, what does it say here? 32 and 33. Aaron?
Therefore, whoever confesses me before men, him I will also confess before my Father who is in heaven. But whoever denies me before men, him I will also deny before my Father who is in heaven.
What does it mean to confess Jesus before men?
You stand up for the truth.
You stand up for the truth? Another explanation? Somebody else?
Don't be ashamed.
Don't be ashamed to talk about what? Talk about Jesus, what he has done for you. To talk about God, right?
Right.
What happens if we are?
Then you're denied it.
He's not going to confess you before others.
Yeah, he's not going to confess you. He's going to be... Most of the time people don't talk about Jesus because they are ashamed or embarrassed or afraid of
Being ridiculed.
ridicule. But what are you supposed to do?
You don't want to lose your soul.
Yeah, because if you don't, what happens?
He denies you.
You lose your soul. If you are ashamed to talk about God in this world, Jesus is not going to talk about you before the Father in the judgment day. Think about that, okay?
Well, we're rewarded for speaking up and
Yes.
not denying.
Yes.
Like I said earlier,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
kill the body.
But we do need to take this seriously, because this is a commandment that is given to all of us. And I mean, for some of us, some of you, you may wonder, well, why is this person talking so much about Jesus? Like for instance, I know that Mark at his gym, he talks about God and Jesus very freely. Everybody knows he's a Christian. But other people like us, like, what is he talking so much about Jesus? Well, this is why. Because if he doesn't, then God is not going to confess him before. Jesus is not going to confess him before God in the judgment. And that is not that Mark does that just because he wants what's the benefit. But if that's what's in your heart, you can't stop but talk about it. If you know the good that Jesus has done for you, because he has washed away your sins, that you are saved, right? And that you're going to heaven, why aren't you going to want to talk about it? If you care about somebody, if you love somebody, right? You're going to talk about that person a lot, right? So let's read then, although that will be the case, very important, next verse, 34. Let's please read 34 through 39. 34 through 39. Who wants to read this? Ava, you've been kind of quiet. I know you're a great reader. Why don't you read this? 34 to 39.
Do not think that I came to bring peace on earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to set man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. And a man's enemies will be those of his own household. He who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he who loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. And he who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. He who finds his life will lose it, and he who loses his life for my sake will find it.
This is a very deep topic here, but it's very important. God here says, you cannot love mother or father more than me. You cannot love anything more than me, right? Can you love your car more than Jesus? Can you love your hobby more than Jesus? Can you love your job more than Jesus?
Not if you're not to be in the right side of the Lord.
I mean, here it says that even if you're not supposed to even love your mother and your father. What about your hobby? What about your... And again, I'm going to put my son on the spot because he loves jiu-jitsu. That's his hobby. That's his job. And all the people don't understand, why is it that you can't miss one Sunday to go to a tournament? And Mark needs to tell him, because it says here, I have my priorities and I put God first. Whether it's a job or a hobby, it's very important to prioritize and to show God your priorities, right? Very important. Questions? Okay. Well, look at the time. 11:45. Our time today is up, but we will continue this study on Wednesday as we are making our way through the Gospels. Let's take a 15-minute break and come back actually that clock is ahead. We're going to be back in 15 minutes for worship.